last one we talked about C10 pickups and took a drive up to Virginia City, and now we're coming back after walking around for a while, and you can see that we're still in Virginia City, one of the coolest historical sites in the United States. And
because it's original.
It's fairly original. If you took out the power poles and the power lines
and the cars,
and
replaced it with horses, it would look the way it did back.
Pretty much the way it did. But if you think you're going to leave the Bonanza over at Lake Tahoe and ride over here by noon, you're wrong.
That's not happening. yeah, the map on the show is definitely a little incorrect.
Yeah, but it was good for Hollywood purposes, and it worked really well. But we've been listening to lately some really cool old tunes that you just don't hear anymore. And it's been that era of, I would almost say, 1970 to 1978. And it was just
early 70s to late 70s.
Yeah, that brief moment where I would say rock and country just magically converged, and then it was gone.
Yeah, you had obviously there the beginnings of Southern rock.
Yes.
Obviously with the Allmans and all that, you had the Southern rock feel in Leonard Skinner. But then bands kind of morphed it from that country feel where it's not traditional country, it's not Southern rock, it's kind of an amalgam of all of it,
And at the nexus of that, I would almost say, was the Marshall Tucker Band, really.
Yeah, they kind of started it back again in 70 or so, and that kind of feel and that vibe to it.
To this day, every time I hear Fire on the Mountain, I go back to being a little old kid riding in my parents' 76 Blazer, hearing it through the AM radio. That's my frame of reference on that, which I love.
And those songs, Can't You See, and all those, they became big hits, so they were popular.
And everybody covered
style. Everybody started to kind of do more in that style.
Waylon covered Can't You See, and he made it a Waylon song, and Hank Williams Jr. covered it, and it sounded like they knew how to make it their own without ruining it, which was really a
neat deal. You had the outlaw scene, the Texas guys, and they had their sound, and again, everybody kind of took all of this, kind of made a melting pot of this stuff, and it's all great.
And it wasn't even really, in my opinion, I think, it wasn't even limited to the South, because when you get over to California, you have the Byrds and the Flying Burrito Brothers and Poco, the Eagles and Poco.
And early Eagles and all that. Yeah, where it was that style.
Yeah, and how much of those wound up, almost like doing a shell game, where different players wound up in different bands over time, and they just created some really cool stuff that it just happened for that brief moment, and then we never saw it again, and it's really a shame, because it was a good sound. And on the way here, we were actually listening to some early Hank Williams Jr. from roughly 1974, 1975, right about the time he stopped just covering his dad's music and started to really find his own sound.
And you hear so many different styles within his style also. So.
Well, you could hear, as you said, like Clovis, New Mexico, you can hear the John Denver influence in there. And obviously, you listen, I Really Did is clearly a, what would you call it, a Charlie Pride tribute almost. Yeah. It's so, how would you say, indicative of that time period.
Yeah, you had, like we said, it kind of became that country rock. It wasn't necessarily Southern rock. It was more of a country rock feel. And you had the instrumentation, you could tell. You hear it and you go, man, it's great stuff when you go back and start listening to that style. And like I said, it only lasted.
A lot of great artists evolved out of it. I mean, you think about it, Emmylou Harris and Graham Parsons were one of the best duos out of that country rock sound. And both went to different things. Obviously, Graham we lost very early. Emmylou became one of the most recognizable voices and looks in general in all of country music.
Oh, she's a fantastic singer. She started out as a folk singer,
She's great at everything.
She's amazing.
And I think really, even though we haven't mentioned him yet, I think I think Gordon Lightfoot needs to be part of the conversation here.
You know, yeah. I mean, he was very popular, and obviously he started off as a folk singer, but he still had those countryish sounds. You know, the Canadian sound, maybe, that you want to call it.
Yeah.
And, you know, he wrote a lot of great songs, and he kind of had that same kind of vibe to him.
Yeah. In fact, the last time, I think it was about 10 years ago, he came here to Reno. I didn't go, and I fear that's probably the last time I'll have the opportunity to see him, because Gordon's got to be getting up there.
Getting up there.
In his probably mid-80s now.
Yeah, you had a lot of those country kind of troubadour kind of guys that, you know, they wrote great songs, and some were popular, some became big hits, and a lot of guys that wrote those great songs didn't become popular on their own, and then those songs get used by other artists and they become huge hits.
Yeah.
I mean, look at Willie. I mean, he falls into that category kind of too. Before he became a huge star, he wrote great songs. And you had a lot of other guys like that, Townes Van Zandt. You look at Rodney Crowell and all those guys.
Yeah.
That, you know, they're really good. They wrote some just fantastic songs, but they never quite got over the hump on their own, but they've made a great living. They're respected amongst their peers just greatly.
100%. I remember back in the late 80s when Rodney Crowell was starting to hit on his own, and he had that little brief window there where he had about 4 or 5 hit songs in a row, and then I don't know whether the wheels came off the bus or whether he wanted to spend more time at home, but he just kind of does his own thing, and he's still out there playing.
Oh yeah,
and writing songs. He's fantastic. I mean, when Bob Seger doesn't, you know, when Bob's putting out one of your songs, I should say, you know, a Rodney Crowell song, you know you've made it.
Yeah.
Because Bob generally writes most of his own material.
There's a guy who has written just fantastic music.
Well, and Bob even at a point kind of fell underneath that country rock banner as well.
Oh, sure.
Because he's written songs. I mean, he's had duets with Patty Loveless. He's had them with Martina McBride. Well, he knows how to pair his baritone with the perfect high-registered female voice.
And he's written a lot of songs. I mean, you got to, you know, Against the Wind is a great song. His original version's probably one of, you know, it's, I think, one of the best songs written almost ever. It's that
entire album.
Song. It is, but how many country artists have covered that song?
Oh, I know.
You know, because it lends itself to that sound. And it's
so easily.
Yeah.
And I think even, okay, let's talk about Alabama, because they started off more Southern rock before they discovered that there was a bigger audience in the country.
Yeah.
But you listen to the early album, that Alabama was very, very much, and they don't get as much credit as they should for being 3 excellent harmonizing voices.
Oh, yeah.
They all sing so well together that if you take any of them out, you're really losing a core element of that band.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion. I could be right, I could be wrong, but it's the same thing as, okay, let's talk about Van Halen. When you take Michael Anthony out, you're losing the dynamic of the sound, because all that high harmony is Michael.
Yeah, they fit together well, and that's it changes the tone totally.
Well, yeah, it's upsetting the dovetail, so to speak.
Yeah,
you know, it really is. Oh, Volkswagen, pretty gutted out Volkswagen over there. You know, when you get into these little towns, and I mean little, this is what, Silver City here, on the way up to Virginia City. These are little old historic towns. There's a lot of cars tucked away in these places, as they have been for their whole lives. There's probably more than one original owner 57 Chevy up here that we don't know about.
Yeah, there's a lot of cars and a lot of garages and barns and sheds up here that you probably don't know about. There's a lot sitting around, and the nice part here is it's being in the Nevada desert or high desert mountain is they don't rust.
No.
I mean, they might have a little surface rust on them, but nothing that can't be taken away, or in a lot of cases, a lot of people like that patina, and you just leave it.
You leave it. The only, and this is where my opinion diverges from a lot of people, I don't believe in throwing the glossy clear coat over your patina.
No, that's ugly.
I just don't like the way it looks. If you're going to do it, you need to put it ultra flat so it doesn't look like anything's been applied over it. So it looks just the way it was pulled out of the field, basically. but we all, we can agree to disagree on certain things. It doesn't matter. We're all in the hobby for the same reason. And this was just one of those topics we were thinking about, the country rock, because it doesn't get a whole lot of love these days, I don't think. Do you?
No, I don't think it does. And
it's kind of gone the way of disco.
One of those genres that seem to have and there may be some guys out there that we don't know about that are doing it, and that's great. But you don't really see it in the mainstream anymore. That genre's kind of
we
gone.
see it a lot more today in a lot of those red dirt bands.
Yeah.
And they're extremely good. They don't get much radio play, but they have an extremely loyal following. In fact, when they go up to Idaho to the Braun Brothers reunion every year, people lose their minds over that. And yet these guys are just common guys. My best pal, my other best pal, I should say, Micah, goes up to that every year. He goes golfing with Randy Rogers, the Randy Rogers Band, every year. Well, they're a great live show. In fact, we were just talking Napoleon Dynamite the other day, and he said the first time he golfed with Randy, he said he tees up, Randy does. He goes, "Hey, what do you want to bet I can hit a golf ball over that mountain?" As soon as he said that, we knew we were going to be pals.
Yeah, we'll be friends now.
But we do that, and these bands that we've talked about are a lot I call them my fallbacks. When I get tired of everything else I'm listening to, I go back, I listen to that type of music a lot. I listen to some Gordon Lightfoot, I listen to some Hank, like we've been, or Waylon. And I do include Waylon in that country rock because he understood perfectly well, especially having worked with Buddy, how to work, weave your way in and out of those two genres.
Oh, yeah.
And do so very effectively. And everything changes, I guess, as you get older. Those are things that were part of my childhood. I went through my heavy metal period where I listened to Pantera and Megadeth, and I still like them. I just don't seek them out anymore.
Yeah.
And when I want something heavy, instead, I wind up going back. I don't know about you. I go back to Judas Priest now every single time. That's or Sabbath, one of the two. Kind of go back to the originators.
Yeah, we are very eclectic in our music styles, and I've been that way forever. Being a musician and playing, I like playing a lot of different styles. Anything from country and cowboy sitting just with an acoustic guitar to playing really heavy stuff. I just like playing all of it.
You might hear jazz coming out of the speakers in this truck. You might hear, you might hear blues from the 1930s that was, recorded on an old phonograph. You never know what you're going to hear coming out of the speakers. And that's the fun thing. Whenever we road trip, I drive. This guy brings the music. And all I always tell him, bring something I haven't listened to in forever. I want to expand. Don't ever be afraid to expand when we're driving, we listen to music. So why listen to the same thing over and over and over again? And that's just our advice. So I think we're going to get here. We're going to let you guys go. The chocolate factory is right here. So I think we're going to stop and get some candy. What do you say, Gary?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Chocolate.
We'll see you next time.